Hi everybody, my name is Chris Glassman and this is the Chris Glassman Quartet. And today we're going to be performing Centerpiece, written by Harry Sweets Edison, lyrics written by John Hendricks.
The more I'm with you, pretty baby, the more I feel our love increase. Building all my dreams around you, our happiness will never cease. 'Cause nothing's any good without you. 'Cause baby, you're my centerpiece. I'll buy a house and garden somewhere along the country road of peace. A little cottage on the outskirts where we can really find relief. 'Cause nothing's any good without you. 'Cause baby, you're my centerpiece. I'll buy a house and garden somewhere along the country road of peace. Little cottage on the outskirts where we can really find relief. 'Cause nothing's any good without you. 'Cause baby, you're my centerpiece.
So today we're going to be talking about the blues. And a lot of people have asked, what exactly is the blues? So the blues is actually not 1, 2, 3, 4, but 5 different things of what make up the blues. And I'm going to go kind of biggest to smallest. The first thing about the blues is that it's a feeling. It's something that we all feel. The blues, whether you're having a terrible day, whether you've been having a terrible month, week, year, or whether you think things just aren't really going your way at all, we all feel the blues. The next thing that the blues is it's an aesthetic. What do I mean when I say aesthetic? An aesthetic is you applying a feeling, an emotion to something big picture. So an aesthetic with the blues is a way that you approach or you hear a type of music, an aesthetic. It's also a style. And style gets a little bit more particular when I'm talking about style, because with style, especially with the blues, we have certain things that we do when we play to demonstrate the style of the blues. The fourth thing that the blues is it's actually a form. You can write the blues down on a piece of paper, and it's 12 bars. Crazy, right? And the last thing is that there's actually a scale for the blues. It's crazy how there's actually 5 different things that make up the blues: the feeling, the aesthetic, the style, the form, and the scale. So, in relation to the blues, the first 2 things that the blues are, the feeling and the aesthetic, are something that I find deeply personal for everybody, so I won't really go into it. But we can talk a little bit more about the more technical aspects of the blues, namely, first off, the style. And there are a couple of inflections that we love to use in the blues to show style. And being someone that plays the trombone, I feel like I can get the most out of it. The first thing is we have something called a scoop. It's where you don't exactly hit the note right on, you start low and you slide up. The next thing is a fall, and that's just the opposite. We also have something called a dwa. Check this out. Pretty cool, right? We also have, in addition to the dwa, we have the opposite, which is called a splat. In addition to that, we also have, you can really muddy up the sound and do something called a growl. And we have that last thing that I did, which is called vibrato. You combine them all, and you get blues style. The next aspect of the blues is actually the form. And when I say form, the way that form works is it's kind of like an instruction manual for you on how to play something specific, in this case, the blues. The blues has a 12-bar form and uses something called 7th chords. So it's a chord that has the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and lowered 7th of the major scale. In addition to that, the instructions tell us how long we're going to play each chord. Namely, with the blues, we play the 1 chord, a 1-7 chord for 4 bars. Next, we play the 4 chord for 2 bars. And then we go back to the 1 chord for 2 bars. And then we go 5 chord for 1 bar, 4 chord for 1 bar, and then we got 2 more bars of the 1 chord. Just a little bit of a background behind what I mean by 1, 4, and 5, and what they do. 1 is home. You're on your couch, you're watching a nice show. Number 4 is you're leaving your house, you're going to the car, you're getting ready to go. Number 5, the 5th scale degree chord, is when you're on the road, someone cuts you off on the highway. You feel some tension. So we have tension and release in music, and that's what makes it motivating. So 1 is the least amount of tension, 4 is a little bit more, and 5 is the most tension that we have in the form. And we use those 3 chords in the blues. And as you'll see in the corner, I'll show you an example of the blues form in the key of G, which is what we're playing Centerpiece in. So, what do I mean when I'm talking about the blues as a scale? Like any of the scales that you usually play, if you play a band instrument, you usually know the B-flat scale. And like the blues as a form, scales give you information. They tell you sort of the instructions about the best way to play over a certain sound, chord, feeling, anything like that. So, the blues as a scale, the blues actually has its own instructions. And I'm going to play them in the key of G, which is the key of Centerpiece. So hard for me to play the blues scale and not get a little funky. Another really amazing and beautiful thing about the blues is the fact that it takes our two most standard chords, that being the major chord and the minor chord, and sort of smashes them together, much like how our emotions are. Honestly, for me personally, not everything is always super happy, not everything is always super sad. Sometimes it's a little bit of both. And because of that, when you're improvising and playing the blues, you can play both the major third and the minor third. Another amazing thing about the blues is that since chords are made up of the first, the third, and the fifth scale degree of their corresponding scale, the blues also plays around with that fifth, which helps define that sound, meaning that you have not only the ability to use the normal fifth of the scale, you can flat that fifth and flat that third and get that really, really nasty. It's actually diminished. I'm going to demonstrate that a little bit. Do it. Yeah. So I want to talk just a little brief bit about something that we've probably all heard before, something called playing bluesy, playing the blue notes. And what I mean by that is that those notes that we were just talking about, taking the minor third, the flat fifth, and the lowered seventh, which I actually haven't talked about yet, and putting them into your soloing gives it that sort of bluesy aesthetic, bluesy style, bluesy sound. So like I said before, you can play the major and the minor third when you're improvising, and the more you play that minor third, the more you play that flat fifth, the more you play that flat seven, the more bluesy the sound is. Notice how I was playing some of those scoops in there too? Specifically, I'm trying to play as though I am a blues singer. I'm trying to pretend like I'm Bessie Smith, and I got a lot to talk about. And you're playing those blues expressions, those bluesy notes, the flat third, the flat fifth, the flat seven, and bringing them into the major, that gives that distinctively blues sound. So I want to talk a little bit about the history of the blues, because I think it's very, very important that anybody interested in listening to, learning to play, or just being aware of what the blues are, I think they need to understand the history around the blues. And the thing about the history of the blues is it was created out of suffering. It was created and developed during the time of the African slave trade in America, and specifically in the rural South, where slaves were being denied basic human rights. Rights like food, water, reasonable working hours, living accommodations, and they were worked to the bone. And the only way that they persevered was through their music, through their work songs. They banded together through song, through music, through the blues. So the next thing that I love about the blues is that the blues is a conversation. It's a dialogue. It's not just one person. We're all having a conversation together. We're all talking. And because of that, we do something called call and response. I'd like to demonstrate that a little bit. I'm going to have Rockelle here sing some ideas. We're going to respond to her calls. All one, two, all one, two, three.
Be-do-dee.
So, she was playing an idea, and I'm responding. And you can either respond by playing the same thing or playing something different. And for that time around, I played the same thing. But you do have the opportunity to play and personalize it and give it your own little thing. Another thing that we do, especially in jazz music, is that we trade. And when I say trading, I mean we take those instructions, that form, and we chop it all up into little bite-sized pieces. And everyone gets a little piece of the form. We're going to do a little bit of that right now. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, You see how we kind of kept a running conversation going, finishing each other's sentences? We know what they're going to say. I got it. I'll finish the sentence for you. That's the amazing thing about the blues, is call and response. So, one amazing and beautiful thing I love about the blues and jazz music is that it's actually a democracy. And what I mean by that is that everybody in the ensemble is equally as important. Everyone has a voice, everyone is allowed to express their opinion, and everybody gets a time to their own, meaning that we get an opportunity to let our individual voice be heard. And you'll hear that a little bit when we're playing the solos here. Everybody has a moment where they're featured. And that's what I love about jazz and blues as a democracy. I just want to take a brief second to talk about what I mean when I say the feeling of the blues, because it's something deeply personal, and I'd like to just share my personal account. The thing I love about the blues is it allows me to channel my positive and negative energy into the music. And what I mean by that is that whether I'm having an amazing day, whether I'm having a terrible day, whether I've just been bullied at school, whether I just left my parents, I just moved away to college, and I'm not going to see them for I don't know how long. The blues allows me to take all that and channel it into the music, and it enhances it. So please, do yourself a favor. Take your feelings, put them into the blues. We don't get enough time to work on expressing ourselves as humans. So we're going to take just a second here to wrap up before we play the tune for you one more time, just to say that you can combine all the parts of the blues, the feeling, the aesthetic, the style, the form, and the scale, and you get what we're about to play, which is Centerpiece again. Everybody gets a time to shine. Everybody has the instructions ready to go, and everybody knows that's how you play the blues.
The more I'm with you, pretty baby, the more I feel our love increase. Building all my dreams around you, our happiness will never cease. We'll buy a house and garden somewhere along the country road of peace. Little cottage on the outskirts where we can really find relief. 'Cause nothing's any good without you. 'Cause baby, you're my centerpiece.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you're interested to learn more about jazz, the blues, or anything related to that, please contact the Michigan State University Community Music School, Detroit.
Today, we're going to talk about the blues. You've heard of the blues before?
Mhm.
So quickly, what is the blues to you?
Sad jazz music. Like, in like,
music.
I know it's in like minor keys and it has its own scale, like the blues scale. I learned that on the cello, kind of. And yeah,
Sad jazz music. I like that. Yeah. So there's a fun fact about the blues, and that's that the blues is actually 5 things. You ever heard of that before? Anybody said that the blues is 5 things? The blues is a feeling. So we all feel the blues. That's where the sad jazz that you're talking about comes from. The feeling of the blues is like feeling down in the dumps. Sometimes actually the blues is for things that you feel that are not exactly happy, exactly sad. I like to think of things that are bittersweet as being the blues. The second thing that the blues is actually, so it's not just a feeling, but it's an aesthetic. So the blues aesthetic can mean a lot of things in or outside of music. So in music, blues aesthetic is like a way that you think about playing. When you're playing the blues, you're going to play it differently than when you would play like an orchestra piece or you play a classical piece. There's like a different set of best practices. And also, the blues aesthetic can also be how you carry yourself as a person. The blues aesthetic, you know, there's a type of clothing that people who play the blues wear. You know, there's a lot of, you know, hats, really clean, sharp suits. You know, I love the blues aesthetic. I try to get the blues and the jazz aesthetic as much as possible while I'm playing gigs and stuff, because I feel like it's a really essential part. And then, do those make sense so far?
yeah.
So the third thing, you have any questions about that before I talk about the next part? No? Okay, cool. And feel free to chime in with questions at any time. I like questions. So third thing that the blues is it's a style. So we can get, and we're going to get a little bit more technical about the actual style of the blues. I said that the blues aesthetic is sort of like a way that you think about the blues, but the blues style is kind of like the more technical side of that. So we'll talk about blues style in a little bit and some of the things that we can do to make it sound bluesy. The blues, as also the fourth thing that the blues is it's a form. So do you know what I mean when I say a form? Like a song form.
Like how it's played, kind of.
Yeah, so there's actually like a series of chords that you play over 12 bars, and that's called the 12-bar blues. So it's a form, and we'll talk about that too. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the last thing that the blues is it's a scale, like you mentioned. There's a blues scale, and the real key to the blues is that you got to take all of them and you got to put them together. So you work on channeling your personal feelings, emotions, everything. And that's one of the more beautiful parts of music, I think, is that one day I realized that I can actually take all of my negative emotions, all my frustrations, all my happy emotions, if I had a great day, and I can actually channel them into the music. Have you ever done that before? feel like, no, well, I would highly encourage you, if you're having a bad day, pick up your trombone and just let it out. It will really help. One day I'm a very left-brained person, so I think about like math and numbers and everything. So I always thought about music as math. But one day I was playing, and I was like, man, I'm having like the worst day. My teacher just looked at me and said, go practice, get all that out, go play. You're gonna make really good music, so just do that. That's what they told me. And then I realized, I was like, I can take my feelings and emotions and put them into the music. He's like, yeah, go play the blues. You'll sort it out. So it's crazy. You can actually channel your feelings into music, but you can. And some of the best solos, best musicians take their feelings and emotions and they channel them into the music. That's what makes it like something that really moves us. So blues aesthetic, kind of, I already talked about it a little bit. The only thing I'll add is just that, like, with the blues aesthetic, it's like a mindset. You're thinking blues. And because of that, it implies a lot of different things that we think stylistically. So let's talk a little bit about what I mean, the style of the blues. So there are a lot of different inflections that we can do to make the blues style happen. Do you know what I mean when I say inflection? It's like putting that little bit of icing on the cake, that cherry on top, a little bit of zhuzh, you know what I'm talking about? So an inflection is like not notes, but how you treat the notes. So I think it'll make more sense once I start playing. So here's an inflection, a blues inflection. A fall. Here's another one.
Oh, a gliss?
Yeah, it's like a gliss.
Glissando?
Yeah, so a gliss means when you move the slide either up or down without like articulating. And I love trombone because we can do all that stuff. It's a lot harder to do it on a trumpet or a saxophone or anything, unless you play like the bass or another string instrument. Like you play the cello, you can do a lot of glisses on the cello, a lot of slides and scoops and stuff. But yeah, so you take that glissando that you just mentioned, and you do a bunch of different things with it to get these inflections. So I'd like to try a couple of them, if that's okay. You got your trombone handy?
Yeah.
So let's do.
Sorry,
You're fine. You're totally fine. No problem at all.
Okay.
Can we I'll play a couple of them first. We're going to do a couple of falls where you play a note and then you slide down. Oh, like this. You're good. No rush.
Okay.
That's on a yeah. A couple more. Do a couple more. Yeah. It's like ow. Like that. Ow. Do that. You got to really mean it. Yeah. Cool. And then the opposite, where you start low and go high, is called a scoop. Like. Yep. Do a couple more. You're really getting it. Good. Another thing that you can do, can you roll your R's? Can you go, is that a thing that you can do? Yeah. So if you do that while you're playing, you get something called a growl. It's all right. That's all right. If you've never done it before, it takes a little time. Yeah, you gotta really push your air. Yeah. So the more you practice that, the more you get comfortable with growls. That's another inflection. So I'll put the 3 together that we've done so far. And then I just did the next one, which is vibrato. You ever heard of vibrato? I'm sure you play the cello. Yeah, exactly. You play the cello, so you know.
Oh, so.
Yeah,
Like
you're
that?
doing it with the slide. You can do slide vibrato. Do that again. Yes.
Oh yeah, I did that in class.
Yeah. And the trick to doing good slide vibrato is to actually just use your fingers. Go dee wee 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 like that. Exactly. Yeah. Do a couple more and really blow through the horn. Good, good. And then because we play the trombone and we use our lips, there's actually, you can do lip vibrato too, where you go wah 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 wah. Yes, exactly. There's a lot of different ways we can make inflections on the trombone. I personally think that trombone is one of the best instruments to do blues, to do inflection on, because there's so much potential. You can do scoops, you can do falls, you can do growls, you can do lip vibrato, you can do slide vibrato, you can do all this different stuff. So trombone is so cool. And the other reason why is because the blues comes from singing. It comes from the vocal tradition. And the reason why it comes from the vocal tradition is because the blues was formed and developed during slavery in America. So specifically what I mean by that is that the blues was developed by slaves taken from Africa to America. And then,
I know.
you know about slavery. Yes, of course. I'm sure you do.
Enslaved people, they took their music and played it on European instruments. That's how we got jazz. And then they played sad music. And that's the blues.
Exactly. And the way that they applied their traditional music was through singing, because they would be working, they would be working in the fields, and they could only sing to get through the day. It was so hard for them to continue to keep working and working. So they would sing work songs that were blues, and that's where the blues, like, you know, they took that, like you said, they took the tradition and then eventually applied it to instruments once they were able to play instruments post-slavery. So you know all this already. I love it. I love it. You're so smart. You got it all figured out. I love it. Because blues is started out as a vocal tradition, the trombone has historically been an instrument used to double voice. The first use for the trombone was as a double for the choir, because it has a slide so you can make small adjustments, because you can adopt vocal techniques on the trombone. Whereas if you're playing an instrument with like a valve or buttons, you can't do any of the sliding stuff you do with the voice easily. Interesting, right? That's why I love the trombone, especially when it comes to playing jazz and playing the blues. So there's a couple more inflections. There's one called a doigt. Check this out. It's where you play and buzz going up and you bring your slide out. It's backwards, because when you bring your slide out, it's supposed to play lower, but you're actually buzzing and playing through the partials up. It gives it that sound. You want to try it?
Sure.
Try it on like a B flat. Yeah. That's it. You're getting it. Yeah. So, and as you practice it more and you focus on just really pushing your air through, it'll get more consistent and it'll start flowing and pushing up through the upper register. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like inflections are fun, but they also are a new skill that, like, people who are learning blues and learning how to play jazz have to practice, like their scales and like their articulations and everything like that. That's the blues inflections work the same way. I sat in a practice room for a lot of hours just going. It's weird. It sounds silly, and people would look at me, look at my window and go, what are they doing? But I'm working on my blues inflections. And then the last one we're going to talk about inflection wise is the opposite of that, and it's called a plop. You start on a high note kind of lightly, and then you rock it down to a low note. Yes. So do a couple of those. Yeah. Yeah. And the power of the plop comes from really pushing air through into the bottom notes too. All these, for some reason, if you really push air through them, really help. Okay, there's one more. You get a bone. This is going to be a bonus inflection. It's called a shake. You've heard of a trill before? I'm sure you have. You played cello. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you can take a trill and you do it as fast as possible on a brass instrument, saxophone instrument, anything like that, and it's called a shake. It gets a really cool sound. And this is one I'm still working on, so. That's a shake. It's like, yeah. Really, really good big bands can do amazing things.
Wait, do you just move your tongue?
Actually, you're basically flipping between two notes, like ba ya 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 ya.
So kind of like slurs, but really fast.
That's it. The easier, actually, the higher that you play it, the easier it is. So if you try to go from, makes it a little easier. And don't worry about it. It's totally fine. That's a very, very advanced technique. I only wanted to talk about it as a bonus technique, but like I said, I'm really, really trying to work on my shakes as well, because I can do it like not even half as good as some of the best people in the world. So really, it's totally fine. So with 10 more minutes, I'm going to talk just very briefly about the last two, about the form and about the scale. And you said you've played the blues scale before, so I'm going to put it up.
Only on the cello.
Only on the cello. Oh, okay, cool. So let me do this. I have this little handout. So we're going to talk about the blues form specifically. And the blues form, like I said, is 12 bars. If you can see too, it's 3 sets of 4 bars. That's the easiest way to think about it. And there's 3 chords. The 1 chord, and these are all based off of the scale of that note. So in this case, I have G blues here. So it's based off of the G scale, which we've worked on. The 1 chord is G. And then if you go up to the 4th note of the scale, you have the 4 chord, which is C. And then we go back to G. And then we have the 5 chord, which is D. And you'll notice here that I have a little 7 on them because they're 7th chords. And what that means is that you go up the scale, you have the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th note of the scale that you're playing. So it sounds like this. If you look at measure 15 right here, I have them written out. And one good thing to note about the 7 chords is that this specific 7 chord has a lowered 7th. So when you're playing G major, it has that F sharp, right? So in this case, you lower the 7th and it has an F natural. The same thing with C. Can you play the notes for C7 for me? there's no key signature, so everything's natural.
Okay.
Yep. It's like, and many more. You know what I'm talking about? What that means is it's like, it feels like it's going somewhere. It doesn't feel like you've arrived. What you want is, you want that resolution. But the blues never really gives it to you.
Wait, have you read The Hunger Games, or like have you seen the movie?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know like when the people like at the end of the day when the music starts playing? No, the other one that you did, the one that went like da 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 da.
Oh, something like that.
Kind of.
Yeah, yeah. So it's probably a seventh chord, like you were saying. That's awesome. That's cool that you're already connecting that. That's amazing. So if you look here, you'll see that the blues has the 1, the 4, the 1, and the 5 chord. And the best thing that you can do for yourself if you want to start learning the blues is actually to just play a recording of a blues and see if you can follow along. Because the hardest part about playing the blues is not getting lost in the form. For me personally. So knowing where I'm at and just getting comfortable with hearing, okay, and then now it's going ba-da. That means we're now on the 5th bar. Ba, we're at bar 7. Does that make sense?
I can't read the music. Like, what are those little?
So I forgot to explain that to you. I'm so sorry. There's slashes, which means that it's just to tell you the chords, because when you're playing in a blues or in jazz, the slashes just mean that you're improvising. You're going to play your own lines. You're going to play your own notes. So it's not, there's no like mute, there's no notes here. That's a good question. I'm sorry I didn't explain that yet. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the lines mean, here's your chord. Now is your time to play ideas that you like. This is your solo where you're going to improvise. So
What does the 17 mean on top of stuff and like the
yeah.
6?
So I just wrote that out. It's really 1-7. So it's an I-7, and the I is a Roman numeral for 1. And that's basically saying that if you wanted to play this in a different key, you would use that Roman numeral, which is 1. So you would be if you're in any key, you just make that 1 whatever that note is. So I put that in as extra, just in case somebody wanted to play in a different key. Say you're playing saxophone and you want to play like the F blues or something, or you want to play the A blues to make it sound like the G blues. Then you just say, okay, 1 is the first scale degree, so A. And then here, this is IV, which is 4 in Roman numerals, 4 or 7. So then they would play D, A, B, C sharp, D. And then back to 1, and then the V is 5. Make sense? Roman numerals.
Mm-hmm.
Ordinarily, you don't see that. Ordinarily, it's just the letter, but I wanted to include it just in case somebody wanted to play in a different key. So we talked a little bit about the blues as a form. It's 12 bars, and this is a good example of the blues form. And the last thing that I want to talk about is the scale. And right now here I put the blues, the G blues scale and the C blues scale. But for right now, I think we're just going to play the C blues scale. I'm sorry, the G blues scale.
Okay.
So I'll play it for you once, or we're going to do it.
Oh, that's where it comes from.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. During my what was it called? Jazz band, like during school, we played this thing and it went like No, it was like dun 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 dun. I forgot what it was called.
Yeah, it's the blues scale. That's cool. Can you
That
play
makes
this
sense.
scale with me? Can you
Mhm.
read it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Now and then here I'll play it. Can you play that part starting on this third bar here? Measure 20.
Wait.
You got it. Yes, exactly. That's it. So that's the blues scale. And I did it in G because I just did a performance video too where we were playing this piece called Centerpiece, written by Harry Sweets Edison. And so I wanted to be able to show the G blues scale as well. And really the purpose of scales is just to give us sort of instructions so that we can be able to play ideas, play the notes that we're hearing in our head, because these scales are so ingrained in our brains from hearing them and playing them. Like when I played the scale, you were like, oh, I know a thing that's from. Like you were talking about your little song that you were playing in band class. It's the same thing. We use the scales to sort of tell us how these little ideas work and where they come from. So because of that, I want to play a couple of little blues ideas with you. Do you see these here? A few ideas, measure 26. It's got one of those little scoops. That's what that means. Can you play that for me? Good. One more time. That's killing. Good. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet, but you already got it, is that when you're playing blues and jazz, it's actually swung eighth notes, which means that the beat is divided into 3 instead of 2. Instead of dun 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 dun, it's da 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 da, and you play the first and third da 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 do that. That kind of thing. Can you try that for me? D flat second. Yeah, that was it. Exactly. Yes, exactly. So, and if you'll see, I'm only using notes from this scale: B flat, C, D flat, D, 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 do, D, da. You see? And then the last one is a fun little idea using these 3 notes. The fun part is actually the rest. 1, 2. Can you play that for me?
Wait, where are we playing?
Sorry, it's measure 28. Right here. Bo, dee, dee, do, dee, da. Exactly. Do it one more time. You sounded great the first time, though. I just want to hear it again. Yeah. So if you take these ideas and you put them, they're from this scale, and you play them over these chords, in this, you can make your own little solo on the 12-bar blues form. Do you have any questions as we're wrapping up?
No,
No?
I don't think so.
So remember, the blues is 5 things. It's a lot of things, actually. It's a feeling.
Feeling, what is it called? Aesthetic,
Yeah.
form,
Yep.
I don't know.
A
Wait.
scale, and a style.
Yeah.
The style is like the scoops and stuff. The aesthetic is like the clothes in the brain when you're thinking about the blues. The feeling is like all the, the sad and the bittersweet. The scale is like your instruction manual. And the chords and the form is like a sentence, and it tells you how the sentences are made. Every sentence has nouns, verbs, adjectives, and forms have different chords that tell us certain things. So thank you so much.